The contest is in uncharted territory. Well, it was until Joe Biden said he nominated and endorsed Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee. Well, what do you make of Joe Biden's decision to withdraw? Do you think a black woman will be the next president, or do you think Trump is still as unbeatable as he was only a few hours ago? The time is 7:33. Let's get straight back to your calls and to your reaction to this news. Not unexpected, but still somehow incredibly shocking and astonishing that the decision that took so long in coming seemingly had to be dragged out of him. And as John Sopel just said, he went before he was dragged out. As somebody once said, when the herd moves, it moves. And the herd was definitely moving against Joe Biden. Delroy in Brixton, your reaction.
Rachel, how are you doing?
Hi there.
You're
Good.
right. Good. Well, I think what we're just seeing is cats fighting in a bag here, Rachel, from the political old order, just ripping the hell out of each other, because nobody wants this gig. Nobody wants it. It's a poison chalice.
Nobody wants to be president.
Nobody wants that nomination because they're facing the tsunami of the MAGA movement, and I don't think anybody really fancies it. I think, I'm not a betting man, but I wouldn't. The American friends I know seem to be all, even the ones that formerly were blue have gone red. They've just had enough. And the reason why they seem to be had enough, Rachel, is they cannot afford the rent anymore. They cannot afford groceries anymore. They cannot afford anything. The American dream to them is even worse than in Britain. Their chance of owning property is over. Their rents are skyrocketing, like $2,000 a month. They can't afford this. The wages haven't met. They're on still $7.25 an hour minimum wage. That's peanuts, Rachel. They can't afford it, so they don't really give a proverbial about the inner side.
But do they really believe the snake oil that Trump is selling, that he can bring them up and elevate them and restore dignity to all the left behinds and the ignoreds and the deplorables? I mean, yes, it sounds good, but can anyone deliver?
The way you can't ask the question, the snake oil. Let's see, that's a bias-loaded question right there. That's not how Americans see this. They're not looking at it from that point of view. They're looking at it from a very ground-up point of view. They don't give a crap about what's going inside the beltway. They don't. That's for the old order. That's why they're all fighting with it. Nobody wants this gig. It's quite hilarious to watch it. We see this whole old order just fall apart, quite honestly.
Wow. Okay, thank you. I see Donald Trump has just posted a not particularly gracious tweet. We'll get to that after we've spoken to our guest, Hank Scheinkopf, who's a Democratic strategist. He previously worked on former President Bill Clinton's campaign, and he joins us now to dwell on tonight's historic news and I suppose to ask whether any Democratic candidate can beat Donald Trump, or is, as my previous, you heard that caller, Hank, is it still game over for the Democrats?
It's not. Well, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming on.
It is a historic moment. When was the last time we saw anything like this in the United States? 1968, when the then President Lyndon Johnson said he would neither seek nor he would accept the nomination of his party to be the President of the United States. Pretty extraordinary. What does it mean? Can he beat Donald Trump? Yeah, he can beat Donald Trump. The Democrats can beat Donald Trump. Why? Because we're now, let's see, this is July. The election is 3 months and change away, and anything can happen. And that's the nature of the world and nature of politics. And everybody who watches politics, and certainly in the UK, knows that 10 minutes in politics is 20 years in anything else.
Yeah, and then I seem to remember when Lyndon Johnson stood aside, it went Hubert Humphrey, and then it ended up with, my brain. But,
Right.
there was a convulsion in the Democratic Party. We are going to see something similar. But how can I just ask you, how significant is Joe Biden's endorsement of Kamala Harris?
Not as significant as people might think. This is a convulsion in a party, the oldest party, I think, political party in the world. The convulsion is about new versus old, factionalism versus non-factionalism. The Republicans have a single theme, a single candidate. They have a geographic continuation on their constituency. The Republicans are in much better shape. The Democrats are all over. The Gaza war is part of it. The youth is part of it. The fact that the United States is no longer most of the citizens of the United States cannot trace their legacies to Europe, and the economic system is changing rapidly. When you put all that together, you have to ask where the Democrats are, and they're all over the place, which means it's going to be very difficult for them to put a winning coalition together, but they can still win.
Didn't they end up with Richard Nixon when Lyndon Johnson decided not to seek the nomination? I mean, can the Democrats coalesce around somebody who could beat Donald Trump in November? And in your view, Hank Scheinkopf, you worked on Bill Clinton's campaign. He was a highly successful Democrat. Is there a Bill Clinton somewhere on the back bench?
There are no Bill Clintons anywhere. He is the perfect candidate. He has the extraordinary ability to relate to people of all kinds almost instantly, all shapes, sizes, dimensions, and colors. The Democrats have a problem because like I said a moment ago, their coalition is non-existent. It's not brittle. It has multiple heads, and it'll be very hard to unite them. The single uniting factor will be Donald Trump, not anything else. So it's up to Trump to make errors, to be ungracious, to be mean and nasty. If he does that, he makes it easier for Democrats to win. But the candidate pool that Democrats have to choose from is rather limited too. If they say no to Kamala Harris, the vice president, what do they do to the black vote, which the Democrats need in order to win? If they say yes to her, what do they do to people who are more concerned about national security, about migrants, where she has made public statements that are hardly cogent? And it is very difficult to see how she wins.
And we're assuming she does get the nomination, which is a heroic assumption. I'm not entirely sure that's going to go anywhere, but you know better than me. How would she balance out the ticket? Who would you go for if Kamala does get and secure the nomination in August?
That very important question. It would be someone probably. Well, look, Americans have elected presidents generally who are governors and or military heroes. So it's hard to find one of them right now, but you could find somebody who's a military hero of sorts, there's a senator from Arizona, Kelly, whose wife was a congresswoman who was shot and severely injured. He can make the argument about gun control, and he can make the argument about strong military and restoring America's strength throughout the world. He could do that because he's a military guy. He's an astronaut, I think. He'd be someone that you'd want, that kind of persona. And he comes from a state which is critical to the Democrats if they're going to hold on to the White House. And if they're going to hold on to the Senate, which is where they're going to take back the Senate, hold on to the Senate and potentially take back the House. Taking back the House will be difficult for them. Holding on to the Senate may also be difficult for them. Why? Americans hate instability. They hate chaos. And when there's chaos, they tend to vote for the party that is out of power.
And in terms of the odds, are the odds better or worse with Kamala than Biden in terms of how the Democrats were going to do against Trump?
I think they're worse.
With Kamala Harris?
Worse with Kamala Harris. Why? Because Joe Biden may appear to have moments of where he stammers and appears out of control, but Kamala Harris's statements on immigration, migration and immigration, which are critical issues for America right now, and that's one of the reasons that Trump is propelling forward the way that he is, are just incoherent. And she was responsible, or Biden made her responsible for immigration issues, and she's failed to perform, and that will be very difficult.
Hank, you won't have seen, I just want you to stay on the line just to react to Donald Trump's post on Truth Social.
Sure.
You said that it would help the Democrats if Trump turned mean and nasty. Just have a listen to this. Crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve and never was. He also claimed that Biden attained the job as president by, I'm quoting, by lies, fake news, and not leaving his basement. All those around him, including his doctor and the media, knew that he wasn't capable of being president, and he wasn't. And now, look what he's done to our country with millions of people coming across our border, totally unchecked and unvetted, many from prisons, mental institutions, and record number of terrorists. I mean, that's Trump unfiltered. That's bad Trump again. I mean, we were hearing that Trump was, reflective and religious and calm and so forth after his brush with death, but he's back.
It's not going to help him to do this. All it will do is make the race much closer than it ought to be. He will snatch victory. He will snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, because why? Americans, especially after assassination attempts and violence, are looking for some kind of calm, and they're looking for leadership, not vitriol. And Donald Trump is violating the first rule of that, for sure.
Thank you so much for your time, Hank Scheinkopf, Democratic strategist who previously worked for Bill Clinton on his highly successful political career and campaign.